Hello role players, this is Cross. What I'd like to talk to you about today is macros for your Roll20. So what macros are, let's define that first, is mostly just chat commands that you can just hit a button and execute them all. So let's look at one just to start off with. Mostly what I use macros for is to help me navigate my APIs a little bit better. So right now we're looking at a death macro for TokenMod. What does a death macro do? Well, if I go through and create a, let's see, a bootlet and a troll. Well, let's say that somehow there's an AoE that kills both of these guys. If I test macro, notice both creatures went to 0 HP and they have the death macro. All I was able to do, I just highlight them and take care of that. This is exceptionally useful if I set him to 20 HP, go ahead and 20 HP. And if he's dead, if somebody does 23 damage to him, I can click my death macro and just go ahead and kill him off. Just saves that little bit of time and gives your players a clear cut, yeah, this guy is dead. Your character just witnessed this guy fall down to the ground, no longer moving. You no longer have to deal with this guy. Red X. Good. Let's walk through the macro itself. What are we doing? We're just executing the status marker dead. That's what the red X is. And we're setting the value of bar 3, not the maximum, but the actual current value is now equal to 0. Cool. How do we know how to do this? Well, let's go to our API sheet. We have this on the one-click API, the TokenMod, and it tells us how to use this mod right here. This is the command. This doesn't make sense to you? Great. It doesn't really to me either. That's fine. We don't have to understand this to use this mod. If you look at it hard enough, it will eventually start making sense, but if you're new, maybe not right away. So, what do we need? We need exclamation token mod. Great. And we need some of the parameters. Available text properties. Great. We have bar 1, 2, 3 value, bar 1, 2, 3 max. This is the value that I was using, and I'm setting it to a value. Cool. You also have all of the status markers. TokenMod set status marker equals dead. Hey, I can cut and paste this straight off the guide. Look, that's exactly what I was using. Just cut and paste it directly off the guide. It tells you that's how you set status marker dead. Status marker equals dead. So if I needed status marker to equal something else, this is how I would do it. I would figure out what these are, and like such as cobweb, if you wanted a macro to show when someone webbed an area, great. Status marker equals cobweb. Cool. So we have all of these to deal with. And so that's the two things my death macro shows me, is that I can just quickly kill a creature. Cool. What's some of the other macros that I use? This is a group check macro, and this is just to let me roll survival checks. I'm going to go ahead and go to my splash page for my current campaign, take a look at some of these characters here, and what I can do with, let me pull this up a different way. I've got it on my quick bar down below the screen that you can't see. What am I doing? Group check. We're doing a survival check. We're going to test macro. Excellent. It didn't roll a survival check for some reason. Actually, I remember that now, that it doesn't roll the survival check, but I realized that I can get any kind of check from this if I left it the way it was. I don't know what the error is, but it actually helped me out. So if I want a deception check for every character in my group, it rolls 2. That's this part right here. And it rolls a bunch of deception checks that you can't see to do the overlay. Great. Let's go ahead and pop that out. And we'll do it this way. Perfect. So, as you can see, I rolled a bunch of deception checks for my group. Likewise, I can go ahead and do the same thing. And we can do a perception check. Great. We can also do stealth checks. So now as a DM, I just rolled stealth checks for the whole group if they're trying to sneak past something I don't really want to alert them to. The announcement of, hey, everybody roll stealth checks can sometimes tip your players off to start acting a little bit more cautiously. Whereas even if they are aware that sometimes you do this behind their back, that kind of keeps that tension up in the back of their mind because they don't know if you are, in fact, rolling these checks or not. How do we get to group check? Well, group check was something I found, and I'm sure that I can post this for you. I actually don't remember where I found it, but it was just a custom script that I found to allow me to do this. That's another good uses of macro. So, switcher. Again, trying to use token mod for this. Now, switcher requires TokenID, at target TokenID. And what this does is it just, at target, it allows you to select a token. So let's look at Sola, for example. Sola now gives me this string here. This is Sola's token ID. Now, let me show you what I actually did with this. It's going to take a minute for this map to load. As you can notice, I enjoy the Gabriel maps. So, what I did was I created this bridge, and it had an anti-gravity element to it. What I wanted was the players to approach it and to come across. They've already been across it at this point, so, good on them. However, what I wanted them to do was mess with their inventory. So with all 3 runes activated, it was a triple gravity in reverse. And then as they knocked off runes, they were able to reduce the amount of gravity to let lesser strength characters across. So what this required was a light character with a lot of strength to basically remove all of their equipment and to try and go with the bare necessities to try and get across this bridge. Excellent. Visually, I was looking for something very specific. So, with this token here that I have, I'm going to mark it. It's in the left-hand side. I was able to create a character sheet. I'm going to pull up that character sheet here with these macros. And they basically use token mod, and they use items that are in my library that I've uploaded to Roll20, and it lets me switch between those items. So, when I have all the runes on, I can click 1 rune on, 2 runes, and 3 runes. Now they're all glowing. And when they stepped on rune 1 and they stayed there, I could turn rune 1 off and see they would both turn off, signifying that those two were linked, and that the second one was linked, and that the third one was linked. And at this point, the gravity would be off. So 1 times gravity, 2 times gravity, 3 times gravity. Simple. But it created a very interesting effect and a very easy way to control this effect through just using a little bit of API support and help there. This effect was assisted. The Aaron gave me this library script, which basically allows me to get the link to the library element that I need. So it let me know what the file name was to allow me to switch between these two custom images. I made this symbol in Photoshop, and that's how I was able to find the matching symbol. I just had a non-gloat effect and then a gloat effect in Photoshop, and that was the easiest way to do it. Excellent. So, group initiative is standard. You find this in group initiative. We talked about that in my campaign setup guide, and unfortunately the campaign setup guide got put on hold pretty quick. They were doing a lot of updates to the way that those mods I was talking about were working. As you can see, my shape companion is no longer on the one-click API, just due to the sheer amount of updating that had to be done. And so I kind of had to scrap that project midway through just because the updates just wouldn't stop. And so from now on, I suggest not having Shape Companion or your character sheet on the one-click API install or the library install. Install custom Shape Companion and custom character sheet. That way you have the version match and nothing's going wrong there. And then your monsters JSON, which you can again according to the guide, you can find copies of this on the internet, he says, and this allows you to just do the creatures, import your creatures. So let's talk about just a simple macro. One good way to get started. Whisper GM 1d6. This is a macro that I use for my breath weapons. Inline roll, and when you click it in your chat, it rolls d6s. So when your dragon's turn comes up, you can just click this macro and see I just now reset my breath weapon on the 4th turn. Cool, that was easy. We have our death macro we talked about. GM Whisper, this is a fun macro. If players need to whisper GM, sometimes it's hard for them to make sure that they've got this right. If you give them a macro, whisper GM question mark query, and I'll put this in the description below, what it does is it gives you, and I'll go ahead and click this, it gives you a box. They can type whatever in that box, submit, and now they've whispered the GM to whatever message they want. This makes them feel a little bit more confident that they're doing it correctly. We have Group Clear Initiative, which works with Group Initiative. That I do have on the one-click API. And that, I cut and pasted. It tells you how to do it right here. Just put that into a macro and you're good to go. Massive damage. This is actually a rollable table that I have. I can show you here. We have SystemShock, Impairments, and hit location. Those are three tables we have. There's Impairments, hit location, and SystemShock. So what this macro does is it rolls on those tables. We're going to go ahead and test macro here. And it rolled 3 levels of exhaustion, severed a mangled limb. They're stunned until the next turn, and the hit location was in the chest or upper back. Kind of helps you figure out if you want to use like a heavy damage system like this. You know, if they get crit over their Constitution score, or they get crit for half their hit points, or half their remaining hit points, or something. You know, whatever condition you want to set. You know, 3 levels of exhaustion's pretty rough for any character at any level, and it kind of creates that almost realism starting to build up. You know, that combat is even more deadly than it normally is by the rules. Other macros. I have a talk to myself macro. It's just easier to click the button than to type it out. Sometimes I create macros for just one use, just to kind of give to a player. You know, I gave this to a player to help roll their hit points from level 2 to level 5 if they wanted to do that. And then TokenID. These, the monster importer, the spell importer, just macros just make your life a little bit easier. I get by with these from session to session. I can create more if I feel like I need them. Most of the times I don't. The group clear initiative is one that I didn't have for a while that kept messing with me. And what this does, just so you understand, is I'm going to go ahead and group initiative roll, Troll and Boulette have turns. Now if I group initiative clear, it's going to clear them off the turn order and close the window, something that sometimes we forget. We leave that window hanging open and players are like, why is the turn order still on? Well, I forgot to hit it. This clears that off your board, and it just makes it real easy to end combat with a macro. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and that you found some use for it. I'm going to be cut and pasting a few of the more useful ones in the box. Go ahead and post in the comments any kind of macros that you guys have, what APIs they're used with, to kind of help build reservoir of macros in a place for people to kind of come to. Until next time, good role playing.